All right, so you're getting numbers, you're getting girls on your phone, but now you want to get them out on dates, right? Ideally, hopefully, you're getting instant dates, hookups as well, but you're definitely starting to accumulate those numbers. If you're doing day game, you're going to get lots of them. So now, how do you convert that? Well, the biggest single idea in phone and text game is the idea of social capital. Right? Social capital, again, is the idea that at any point in the interaction, people will do one thing for you but may not do something more deep, more intimate, or more committed. Okay? So in phone and text game, a lot of times when you first start texting with a girl, she'll answer texts, but if you were to call her, she won't pick up the phone. Or she'll pick up the phone for you, but you still have some work to do in order to get her out on a date. And so essentially what you should look at phone and text game as is an escalation of the mode of communication. So the best mode of communication is in person. Right? That's when you're talking one-on-one, she's there, etc. That's when you can convey the most. And that's actually why it's so important to run a good initial interaction, is because that in-person communication is so much more valuable than any of the text and phone communication that comes later. Okay, so the first thing is you need to have a good set and you want to be moving it towards that in-person communication. Basically, in-person communication is the best. Next best would be something like phone, or better yet, even Skype if you could do it. And then less good would be texting, where there's less of, there are fewer communication channels open, right? Texting is just information. Phone is voice and information. Skype is voice, picture, and information. And then live is voice, picture, information, and touch, right? So you can do even more in that context. And so that's the idea. You want to escalate it. But the point is you can only escalate as soon as she's ready. So you can't just jump ahead because she'll reject you. And what this means in terms of phone and text game is she'll go silent. So if you try to escalate too fast in text, she'll usually go silent. If you try and call her before it's the right time, she usually won't pick up the phone. All right, so you need to escalate at the proper pace. And I'll teach you in the next section exactly how to escalate at that proper pace. But before I get there, I want to debunk two very common myths and sort of mistakes that people make in phone and text game. The first mistake is the wait 4 days rule. If you've watched the movie Swingers, you know all about this one. But the idea here is that after you get a phone number, you want to wait 3 or 4 days before you follow up and text or call a girl. The idea being that you're conveying that you're not needy, right? If you waited 3 or 4 days, you obviously have other girls in your life, you have other things going on, you're an abundant, cool guy. And that makes sense as far as it goes, but here's where it breaks down in my opinion. When you met that girl, she liked you a lot. Remember, we had good interactions. That's the focus, right? She liked you a lot at that moment. Then over the next 3 to 4 days while you're waiting, she's forgetting you. She's forgetting about you. She's going about her life. There are other things happening. Girls give out their number a relatively high amount of the time. So it's not like you're the only guy she's ever given a number to. Meanwhile, she's also meeting other guys, possibly giving numbers to them, possibly hooking up with them, possibly having sex with them, all of which are going to make you more of a back burner in her mind rather than forefront of her mind. So in my opinion, strike while the iron is hot, trust you had a good interaction, and continue it. Also understand that neediness is not mostly related to how frequently you contact her. It's related to the nature of that contact. So you could contact a girl every single day and not be needy if the interactions you're having with her are alpha, non-needy, cool conversations. On the other hand, you could contact a girl only every few months, but if every single time you contact her, the message itself and the nature of the communication is needy, then you're still hyper needy even though you're rarely communicating, okay? So understand the nature of the communication matters more to the neediness than the frequency of the communication, okay? Second myth, or second mistake a lot of guys make, I think, especially guys that are more beginner, is trying to get super sexual in texting, right? Or even like sexting with girls. So the idea here, and it makes sense, again, you're just trying to arouse the girl. You're trying to have more sexual, more intimate interaction with the girl. And when it works, when the girl will actively sex with you, and then you meet up with her, obviously meeting up with her on the date, there's already this frame that is very sexual, so it's a very high probability good things will happen on the date. So there is some validity to the idea of sexting and arousing a girl, etc. It makes sense, but here's why I don't like it. If you look at the idea of social capital, you want to keep escalating the interaction to more and more intimate, more and more personal venues. And every time that you try and escalate in whatever way, you're risking your social capital. So when you try and sex, when you try and take a textual conversation and make it a sexual conversation, you're taking a risk. That risk could be taken just as easily to get the girl on the phone or even get the girl out on a date. And I would much rather prefer the girl in front of me on a date to some picture of the girl on my text screen. because if she likes you enough to be sexting with you, once you get her on a date, you're probably going to have sex with her anyway. Whereas a lot of guys, when they try and start sexting with girls, they make mistakes, don't get them on the date, and then the lead is lost, essentially. Okay, so basically the idea is for the same amount of social capital that would have taken to sex with a girl, you could have had the girl out on a date. And for me, I think that's a much more favorable outcome, because I don't know about you, but I'm not yet capable of fucking a girl through my phone. I need her in person. So that's why I personally don't sext. I do know some advanced guys who do some sexting to some degree, but I think especially as you're learning, it's very, very important to just focus on the sequence, focus on getting the girl out to meet you, and then trust yourself in person. So I really believe that that's the way to go about things. In the previous section, I explained to you why social capital is the key component to text and phone game, and why you want to escalate the interaction from a textual interaction to a phone interaction to an in-person interaction, or sometimes you'll just go textual to in-person, but you need to escalate the mode of interaction. But the question you might be asking, if you've really thought this through, is how do I know how much social capital I have? How do I know how much I can escalate? How do I move things forward at the right pace? And that really is the critical question to text and phone game. Where am I at? How far can I move it forward without risking too much and having it go silent? Okay? And with this in mind, I realized as I was breaking down my text game, there's really only 4 types of texts you can receive. And each of these texts requires a very specific type of response because it indicates a level of social capital you're at. So without further ado, the 4 types of texts are: you can receive silence, i.e. she doesn't text you back or has never texted you. You can receive a shit test, which is something where she's sort of challenging you or like asserting her frame on you, making you jump through one of her hoops, that kind of stuff. Next, you can receive something that is just logical or just conversational without a lot of emotional content. Or fourth and finally, you can receive something that is overtly positive. It's a clearly positive thing, like, haha, you're so funny, I love that, that kind of stuff, okay? So those are the 4 types of text you can receive. And you'll notice that I gave them in the order of lowest to highest social capital. If she's not responding at all, she's responding with silence, that means you have very, very little social capital. If she's responding with a shit test, that means you have a little bit of social capital because she is responding, but not a super high amount yet. If she's responding with like logical question, it means you have social capital, but she isn't feeling sexual or she's not feeling very motivated yet. And then if it's highly positive, that means you have the maximum social capital and you really need to be escalating the situation. Okay, so now you know where you're at. How do you respond to each of these different types of texts? Well, if you're receiving silence, very little social capital, what do you need to do? You need to build your social capital, which means you need to offer value and ask for very little in return. So here, I'll just send fun, funny, interesting text messages. Think like a Facebook update or a tweet, something like that. Some just like update on your life, some funny thing that happened. Maybe pictures are great for this if you have a good picture you just took, or a funny meme, those kind of things where it's just fun, funny, value offering, not asking for anything in return. You wouldn't send like a meme and then be like, hey, want to get together on Saturday, because that violates the purpose. You don't try and escalate when you don't have social capital, all right? So something fun and funny, asking for nothing in return. Then next level, if you get a shit test, here what you do, just pass the shit test, that's it, okay? Don't try and pass the shit test and escalate. Don't try and pass the shit test and then communicate 2 more paragraphs. Just pass the shit test. Trust that whatever you did is good enough. Now you may ask, how do I pass a shit test? Well, there are 3 ways to pass a shit test. And by the way, this applies for live shit tests and text and online shit tests. The 3 ways to pass a shit test are: number 1, ignore, which works really well live. Like in person, if a girl gives you a shit test, you can just smile and pretend it didn't happen and continue talking. Doesn't work so well in text. Next is misinterpret. That means treat it as though it was a compliment. So if she says to you, I think you're a bit of a player, you'd be like, wow, thanks. I'm glad you think I'm an attractive man, right? So you misinterpret that player means attractive man. So you shift whatever she actually meant to mean something positive. So that's misinterpretation. And then the next would be agree and exaggerate, which means you take whatever frame she put you in and you take it to its logical conclusion. This one works really, really well in person. Harder to do in text, but can be done. Mostly in text, I do misinterpretation. But an example of the agree and exaggerate would be if she says, is that your pickup line? You say that to all the girls. You'd be like, actually, yeah, I practiced for 4 hours in front of a mirror today, and I really hope I got it right, but I feel like I'm kind of stumbling. Could you maybe like coach me through it? Right? So you're taking that frame to a level that's so ridiculous that clearly you're not emotionally affected by it. And that's the key thing with any shit test, is to convey that you're not emotionally affected. That's the bare minimum. If you're not emotionally affected, you may not like pass with flying colors, but at least you won't fail it. Okay, so now we have silence. If you get silence, just offer value, ask for nothing. Shit test, just pass the shit test. Again, don't pass the shit test and try and escalate. And don't try and escalate as the pass of the shit test. A lot of times, like, a guy will get a shit test like, what makes you so special? And he'll be like, why don't you meet up with me for a drink to find out? No, no, no. That will almost always lead to silence, right? Because you're trying to escalate off a shit test. You're not at that point yet. You don't have that much social capital to spend. The third type of text is the logical or just conversational text, where she's like, hey, what did you do? I did this today. What did you do? That kind of stuff, right? Now that's very positive because she's trying to continue the conversation, asking you questions, committing and giving you information about her life, et cetera. It's very positive in that regard. But a lot of times these are hard to work with because there's not a lot of emotional content to them. And so with these, this is kind of the in-between middle ground of the texting world, and you need to use some judgment. If the overall interaction has been largely negative, what I will do is I will kind of treat this as like a better form of silence, and I'll kind of just ping more value and wait for a few more responses before I try and escalate. If the interaction has been largely positive and now you're getting these sort of like just logical statements, or you've gotten several of them in a row, now it's time to escalate. And we'll talk in a minute in the next section in exactly how to escalate. But you need to be thinking, if it's been positive and you're getting logical communication, it's time to escalate. It's time to make it more emotional in nature. And then finally, if you're getting something overtly positive, it's obviously time to escalate. Now, when it is time to escalate, how do you escalate? Remember when I talked about getting the phone number, I talked about the soft close. Again, the soft close is great when getting the phone number, but the ultimate example of when to use the soft close is in text and phone game. All right, because if you text someone, let's get together for drinks Tuesday night at 7 at Moe's Cantina. Basically, in that context, there's a lot of things that they could object to. And it's a very definite high-risk plan for them. Like, if they commit to it, they are fully committed. It's hard for them to get out of it. So they want to avoid that commitment. So, for example, say they said yes to that and something else came up, then they'd have to flake on you, or they'd have to like prioritize you over some other plans. It's a big commitment. They're not ready for that. On the other hand, if instead of like making that very definite plan, you said, haha, you seem very fun, maybe I'll take you for a drink sometime if you continue being so cool, or something like that. That's just off the top of my head. But something like that. Because it's more of a vague suggestion of a plan rather than an exact nailed down plan. So you'll be like, haha, yeah, sounds like fun. And she hasn't really committed anything. But again, she's given you a yes. Every time she's given you that yes, the next yes comes easier and easier and easier. And especially when she's already agreed tentatively to plans, now you can ask for specific plans without being needy in any way. Once she's already said, yeah, we should grab a drink sometime, now it's in no way needy to be like, hey, what does your week look like? She tells you the dates she's free, and then you say, let's get a drink Tuesday at Moe's Cantina, right? So if you do it in 3 steps instead of 1, you're more likely to get it to happen. You're also more likely to find the day she's actually free. So you'll get a reaction based on how much she actually likes you rather than based on her schedule. But lastly, you avoid hearing no. You hear yes, 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 and not no. And again, remember, the more times you hear yes, the easier it is to hear more yeses. The more times you hear no, the harder the entire interaction becomes, okay? So that's the purpose of the soft close. So just to reiterate, 4 types of text. If you're getting silence, just ping out value, don't ask for anything in return. If you're getting a shit test, just pass the shit test. If you're getting logical communication, if it's been largely negative before that, just offer value and wait for more logical communication. If it's been largely positive, start trying to close. And if it's overtly positive, definitely start trying to close. But in all cases, use the soft close. It will work far, far, far better than just throwing plans into the interaction out of nothing. The final point I want to make with regards to text is that the timing of your text and the length of your text and the investment level of your text do matter. You don't want to seem super, super needy. Now, this is probably super obvious and you're already doing it right, but I see a lot of guys get it wrong, so it bears mentioning. If she's texting you, 6 hours delay between texts and you're texting her 30 seconds delay between texts, you look super needy and super invested, and she is clearly the higher value person in that interaction. So if she's texting you like super drawn out, you don't necessarily need to text her every 30 seconds, right? If you wait like 5 minutes, it's probably fine, but don't just be immediately on call for every single text. Next, also, you don't want to send these lengthy pages and pages and pages text. Every text should ideally contain 1 idea, maybe 2 at most. If you're doing more than that, you're trying too hard, you're doing too much in text. If you're at a point where the texting is getting so intricate that it requires more than 1 or 2 ideas per text, probably you're better off picking up the phone and calling her. And that brings me to my next point, which is, again, the point is to escalate the interaction. So texting is less good than calling, less good than in person. So as soon as I believe that the girl will pick up my phone call, I call her. Okay, now how do you know when the girl will pick up your phone call? Well, probably because the texting's already been really good, or maybe sometimes because the initial interaction was so good that you think you can skip directly to a phone call. Be careful with that one because you will ruin some good interactions if you do it. But sometimes that's the case as well, okay? So if it's been really good, that's a good indicator. Another great indicator for a phone call is that she just texted you. Because if she just texted you, you know that she's by her phone. You know that she, it would be weird and awkward for her not to respond. She texts, you call immediately, and she doesn't pick up. Then it looks like she screened the call. And if she likes you, she doesn't want that, so she'll pick up almost out of obligation. So that's a really, really good time for it. The last time when I'll pick up the phone is, again, if there are too many ideas in text. Like say you've already agreed tentative plans, you're making the arrangements, and she asks you 4 different questions in one text, you might just pick up the phone, because that's probably what you would do with a friend. All right, that's a good metric, by the way. Whenever you're thinking, should I call or should I text? Think to yourself, what would I do if this was my friend I'd known for 20 years, who I'm not trying to sleep with, who I have a pretty, high level of confidence that they're going to respond well to me. In that context, then you would probably just pick up the phone if there's any confusion. That's what you should do with a girl. You should be entitled enough to do so. All right, and that's actually a good principle for all of game and all of day game in general, which is you should probably be treating the girl as though she's already one of your best friends, or treating the girl as though she's already your girlfriend. If you're coming from that frame, it's almost hard to do a lot of things wrong. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say on phone and text game right now. I do want to refer you, though, if you're interested in learning a ton more about phone and text game, I have a product out, which is something like probably 15 or 20 hours of phone and text game, and then me going on dates from phone and text game. And it's called 3 Girls a Day. There'll be a link on the page below if you're interested in it. But if you want to get the excruciating, in-depth, crazy course on phone and text game that will teach you everything and anything you'd ever want to know, that's the course right there as well. All right, so now I'm going to show you text and phone game all the way from getting the number to getting her out on a date. And I'll show you 3 examples, one of which is very straightforward. The other one's where there's a little bit of, back and forth in the text, but where we eventually get a good result, the result that you want. All right, so for that, I'm going to need not the computer, but my phone. First one here, we start off. The first text you see is her name with a heart. And I'd like to claim that the set was so good that she just sent me that out of nowhere. But what actually happened was at the time of getting the number, I actually texted this to myself. And this was my cute way of saving my name in her phone, getting a little bit of interplay between us, etc. So I sent this text to myself. And then my follow-up to this was I said, I'll bet you a drink you'd rather be hanging out with me than doing paperwork right now. And this was a callback to the conversation we'd had and the fact that she said she had a lot to do for work, that kind of stuff. And this is a fine text as far as it goes, because what I was planning on doing was either leaving it, and then if she answered, I was planning on actually being a little conversational and building some rapport, so that it doesn't look like I'm needy for plans. However, what I ended up doing was actually a huge mistake, because she ended up writing back. She wrote, LOL, but I have no choice, as in she was interpreting it as though I was seriously asking for plans. And then at this point, I was actually busy. I had other plans that night and didn't get back to her. And so it actually looked like I had been needy for plans. So by making this error, I actually took what was a very solid number and I turned it into something more flaky. So from here on, you're going to see I have a little more work to do, but it turns out okay in the end. So I actually left it for something like 2 days, which probably isn't ideal at all, like I said. But then I came back with, hey, pretty girl, what does your schedule look like the next couple days? And I assumed because the interaction had been positive enough, I still could get away with it. I assumed I still had enough social capital to get away with this sort of a text. But turns out that she didn't respond back. She responded with silence, which indicates to me that I didn't have so much social capital. So then my next text was, okay, I'm headed to Chicago tomorrow, but let's talk soon. Now, I think this is a pretty good text because it's clearly not making plans. I'm indicating that I'm texting her without any attempt to make plans at all because I'm literally leaving the city. I'm not even available, but I just want to talk. So it seems much less needy and much less like trying for plans. Because again, the error that I had made was just plans. So I'm trying to avoid that. So then she responds, hey, I'm so sorry we haven't had a chance to get together. Okay, so that's pretty positive, right? As far as all that goes, very, very positive, clearly responding well, etc. So I think we're back on like pretty good terms. Now, it would have been better again if I'd never made that initial mistake, but as is, we're in good shape. And here, I think this is a really, really good text because again, I don't want to make plans. I just want to offer value, make it fun and funny. So I give her kind of a backhanded compliment. I say, no problem. If you weren't a bit ambitious and busy, I probably wouldn't like you anyway. So this is an example of a pure value text, right? There's no attempt at plans. There's no attempt to escalate. It's just pure value. I'm just building social capital, which is exactly what I need to do here because early on I already overspent the social capital I had. She goes, LOL, which is fine. Any answer to that is totally fine. Even a no answer to that would be kind of fine, but an answer is better. Okay, so now I am, coming back into town and now I want to make plans. So I go, hey, you, sorry it's been a bit, had a crazy weekend. So here I'm sort of hinting at the idea of plans, but I'm not really going there. Also, a thing that I do a lot here is I say, sorry, it's been a bit. I sort of apologize for not getting back to them. And it makes it look like, if anything, I've been the flaky one or I've been the neglectful one. So it's assuming a position of value. So she goes, no worries, which that's hard to interpret. It could be positive or it could be negative. I interpret it in this case kind of as like sort of neutral. Like she likes me. She's not like super invested. She's not waiting by the phone for me, but like she does like me. So then I go for the next step in the soft close to kind of see where I'm at. I say, you in town this week or going away for the 4th? She goes, in town so far. That's very positive, right? It's very, very positive, very compliant, very much along the lines of plans. Here I tried to like actually call and then wasn't able to get a hold of her. So then I go, okay, you're tough to get a hold of, but if you're still free, it could be fun to grab a drink this weekend. So then she says, I'm so sorry. I've been doing work thing, which is blurred out this week before the holiday. Let's try for it. So let's try for it again. Very, very positive, obviously. So I go, cool, Sunday brunch and drinks, ? And she doesn't respond. So here again, I'm trying for plans. She seems a little nervous about it. So now, ... I mentioned this as one of my favorite texts of all time because it's very entitled. It says, I deserve a response. A lot of guys won't text in this spot because they don't want to seem needy. But being non-needy there, not responding, not following up is actually unentitled. It's like saying, I don't believe that I'm worthy of a response. So I actually really like the ... In this case, even that didn't get a response. So then I go, this is another one that I'll use on like when the girl's flaking a little bit. Dear diary, cute girl vanished. Should I send search party? Right? So now she finally responds, haha, I'm so sorry, work has been demanding. Key lesson out of all that, by the way, is a lot of you probably would have given up there, right? Instead, keep texting a couple of times. You can turn that like flaky number that's off into something good. So, haha, I'm so sorry, work has been demanding. I say, no problem, you free this weekend? She goes, it's a birthday weekend for me, have some friends in town. Are you up for something midweek next week? So this is good, actually. Like, she's very positive. She's making plans. And throughout, like, the issue has never really seemed to be that she doesn't want to hang out. It's just been that she's busy. So she's not getting back, but every time she does get back, it's really positive. So I'm not overly concerned overall. So I go, sure, as long as it's before Thursday, when were you thinking? And she goes, how is Wednesday? And we go with Wednesday is perfect. And then from here, we went to the phone conversation. So that was the end of the textual exchange on this one. But you can see how we took something very flaky, not even responding, and turned it around to plans. So that's a pretty good example of knowing where your social capital is at, knowing how and when to spend it and when not to spend it, when you need to build it versus when you need to spend it. So here's another example with a very hot girl who, again, is busy, has plans, that kind of stuff, clearly likes me, clearly is positive, but she, is busy, is a little flaky by nature, and so there are times when she just goes a bit silent. So let's look at it from the start and just take it from the top. So I start with a basic message that I send a lot. Hey, it's Todd. Look forward to talking to you soon. Please save this number so you can be appropriately excited for my call, winky face. And she responds simply with hi. Not the most committed response ever, but it's something, right? At least she is responding. So here I took till the next day to get a hold of her. Which, is late at night. I was asleep, so I responded the next day when I woke up. Hey, sorry, I haven't gotten in touch with you. Are you free to talk this evening? No response to that. So here I'm starting to look a little try hard, etc. And I kind of forgot about this girl at this point because it was like she didn't respond this early in the conversation. It was a little flaky. But I did my due diligence, followed up a couple days later. What time are you free tomorrow? Still silence. Okay, so now one more attempt, ... I've mentioned this text before. This is a very entitled text. It basically says, I deserve a response. And this text alone is something that if most guys added it to their text game would get them massively better results. And lo and behold, off that text, finally she turns around and answers. She goes, just woke up, sorry, I had to work last night. At this point, I called her up, actually made plans right here and now for a get together. And then the next day, she comes back to me with, baby, I'm dying, I'm nauseous, I had too much to drink last night. So this is her way of like flaking on me, right? And at this point, the plans were for like, I think like 7:30 or something like that, or like 6 or 7, I don't know, somewhere in the evening. So I go, yeah, at about 4, I figured you were having issues, tongue out. Fortunately, I still have my other plans, so we're all good. Actually, I forgot this actually, but on the phone, I actually mentioned to her that I had like other plans, but et cetera, et cetera. It was a very like high value kind of phone conversation. So then she goes, I'm so sorry, baby. So is she actually sorry? Not really, but she's just trying to be polite, right? She's using the baby as like a way to like coo me and like relax me by calling me baby. It makes like the fact that she flaked on me seem less bad. And then she actually called me, which was actually great. So then I go, hey, saw you called. I'm flying to Canada tomorrow, but let's keep in touch. Oh, this is funny too. So she goes, I got a missed call around 2 a.m. last night. Have a safe flight tomorrow. So what actually happened here, I found out later, was I had butt dialed her, and then she called me back off the butt dial. And so I thought she had called me. She thought I had called her. But it was kind of interesting because it resuscitated things. It started the conversation again. So that made it kind of work out a little bit better in the end. And actually, you can use that as a technique if you want to. This was totally intentional in this case. But on a really flaky number, sometimes you can just butt dial someone intentionally, butt dial them intentionally. When you're in the middle of doing something really fun and loud, and that way they kind of like hear you having like a cool life and they want in it. It's a technique. I don't use it much, but it exists. So here, I called her, she didn't call back, so I go, so call me maybe. Eventually she called back and we made plans. And then we see from here, what time are you free tomorrow? What time do you want to meet? 7:30 work for you? It's a date. And then cool, see you tomorrow. So there we go. From there, again, a little bit of flaking, a little bit of, broken plans, but I kept positive about it. And just was entitled and assured and basically persistent in a good way while conveying a cool life. Also, note the use of the phone. I'm a big, big, big proponent, as I mentioned, of using the phone. If you can get the girl to pick up, you're in really, really good shape, right? So very good to use the phone as an actual phone, not just as a texting machine. Next example I'm going to show you is actually really straightforward, and this is kind of how most of my texting goes. The reason I show ones that aren't straightforward to you guys is because if I showed like, hi, let's go out, all the time, that it's not really educational for you. But most of the time, you should be aware that my from getting the phone number to getting the date is pretty straightforward. It's pretty positive and just goes naturally. So this is an example that's more like that. So we start with that same initial text and go, hey, I actually use her name. It's Todd. Look forward to talking to you soon. Please save this number so you can be appropriately excited for my call. Winky face. And she goes, hi, Todd. OMG, I'm so excited. Ha ha. Now, this may sound like she's through the roof for me, and this is a very positive response, but understand there's a little bit of sarcasm in here too. It's not like she's like, creaming in her pants for me just yet. So then I called her here, and she goes, hey, I'm sorry, I was on the phone when you called. So I go, no problem, call me when you're free, or we can talk another day if you prefer. And she goes, I'm free now. So then at this point, pick up the phone, call her again, have a good phone conversation, and then we make plans. And then the next thing that you'll see is from me, let me know when you park so I don't keep you waiting in the lobby too long. She goes, K, 20 minutes, just parked. So showing up obviously for the date, and we meet up from there. So this one's a pretty straightforward example, and this is more like what you'll typically see. Again, the reason I show you the ones where there is some back and forth and some flaking is that I want you to know how to deal with that as well. Most people can handle the straightforward ones. It's the ones where there is a bit of flaking that people have trouble. So I hope that provides kind of a general synopsis of a lot of the things you're going to be doing in texting. I have also mentioned, though, using the phone a lot. So what I'm going to do to end this section off is I'm going to give you a clip from an actual phone conversation so you can hear what I do there as well. So enjoy that, too.
Speaking.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? May I ask who's calling?
This is Todd. How are you? I can't believe you forgot. Anyway.
Oh, I know. Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm good. Are you in right in the middle of work mode? That's a very official greeting.
Oh, yeah. Well, I apologize. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm glad I finally actually got you on the phone. You sound just as cute as I remembered.
Thank you.
You are
Thank
welcome.
you.
Oh man, I actually got back. I was in Colorado yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, I went to my cousin's wedding, so I just flew from LA to Colorado to Vegas in the last 24 hours. So I'm kind of exhausted, but happy.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's nice you got to join your family.
Yeah, I don't go home enough, so every time I go there, they're like, "Come back more. We miss you," etc. So, I guess.
I just returned from California actually for the weekend. So.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. I had a meeting with the broker there, and then spent some time with some girlfriends in Malibu, and just got back. So, and back to work.
Rough life. Rough life.
So.
That's good. So we're just like two little jet setters. I wonder if we'll ever have time for each other.
I took a car. I wasn't jet setting. I don't know about you.
Oh, really? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I had my company booked something for me, so I sound super posh now. Thank you very much. You have a cute laugh. Let's see. I'm going actually back to LA on Friday. So I'll be out of town then, but I'm here until then. Are you free at all this week for like a quick drink or something?
Sure. Maybe on Thursday. It's funny, I might be heading out to LA Friday or Saturday as well.
Oh, really?
Again. Maybe. Yeah. I'll know by tomorrow afternoon.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like you're stalking me. Everywhere I go, there you are.
You got me.
Fair enough. Yeah, Thursday works actually. What time would you be done with like work stuff and all that?
I want to say around 6 p.m.
Around 6? Okay. Let's plan on maybe Thursday around 7 then, and we can touch base or whatever, but just tentatively so I can kind of know.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. I will look forward to it.
Me too.
Okay. Take care of yourself. I will see you then.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
So notice on the phone call and in the text how I'm persistent, I'm always moving it forward, but I'm always playful and not needy. Keep in mind the idea above all else of social capital. You have to build it before you can spend it, but you do need to move the interaction forward. You don't just want to talk and talk all day without going anywhere. So it's all about finding that balance of how to spend your social capital. If you get that down, you're going to get your phone and text game down to a remarkable, incredible advanced degree. Here are some things you can do right at home to get you better at text and phone game. First exercise I'm going to give you is I want you to come up with 10 memes or 10 interesting quotes, things like that, things that are interesting pictures, interesting little bits from the internet, interesting quotations, etc., that you could share with girls as value-offering things. These are things you can do when girls go silent or when you haven't talked to a girl yet, just something to get the conversation started when it's really, really faltering. We've talked about the 4 different types of texts, and silence is the hardest one to deal with. So this is going to help you in dealing with silence when you get it. It's going to help keep a lot of numbers alive that you wouldn't otherwise have in your arsenal. And the more numbers you have currently alive and going, the more you have to work with, the more you have to practice with, the more girls are going to get out, and also the more abundance you're going to have overall. So very, very important to have these kind of just queued up, ready to go, so you don't have to overthink things when you end up getting a silence response. Next exercise for getting good at text and phone game is to actually set up a Tinder account. And Tinder is just an online dating app that's very straightforward, not a lot of profiles. You just match based on pictures and go from there. For anybody who doesn't know what Tinder is, but set up a Tinder account, match with girls you find it hot, and then for a period of time, make it a week, a month, whatever, however long it takes you to get really good at text game, and technically phone game. You're gonna get phone numbers from it as well. You have to message every girl you match with, and you have to do it with the intention of meeting up. You don't have to actually go on the dates. You can cancel if you want to, or when you get it to a point where you know you could get her on a date, you can just quit if you're not interested. But you need to get that practice of getting girls out on dates. And the reason I suggest Tinder is you basically can get a ton of opportunities of people to message with, with very, very little effort. So that's the idea, is just to get you tons and tons and tons of practice. Thirdly, for anyone who really wants to play on that next level, I do have a product called 3 Girls a Day, which is basically my ultimate guide to texting, phone game, and online game. It's $67, super, super cheap. If you really want to get this area of your life handled, highly, highly recommended. Go to 3girlsaday.com. So that's another option you have available to you as well. Your in-field exercises for text and phone game, which technically aren't in-field because you're probably, doing texting and phone game from, your home, but they're active exercises. They're working on your active leads. First one I want you to do is set aside a period of time in the day and allocate that as your phone time. And ideally that should be like an hour, but at the very least make it a half an hour. All right? And during that time, you must be hitting up your numbers, either texting or calling all your numbers. And you're not allowed to stop until either the time expires or you've hit up every single girl in your phone for that time period. Once that's done, you can go on with your life. But the big thing here is a lot of guys just don't follow up with their numbers. This is going to force you to follow up. And I can tell you, following up with your numbers, especially from day game, is the single biggest factor that's going to get you success. If you get a lot of numbers and don't follow up, or if you follow up once and then quit, you're not going to get a lot of results. But if you follow up religiously and well with your numbers, you're going to get crazy, crazy, crazy results. So do it. Set aside some phone time. Make it a project. You will get really good at this really fast, and you're going to get a lot more dates by doing this.